So this is in our September 2nd transcript. On March 22nd, he's in the air, and he instructs Barney Robeson to contact Deb Newsom, Teresa Stenoyan, and Barney also contacts Bethany Caldwell. He asks them a question. Here's the minutes on September 2nd. I say, this is to Nancy. So let me draw some lines that I think seem bad. So you're Deb, you come back from 6 months of being gone, and you're Teresa, you've been back only 3 months or 2 months, and you get an email. Your first contact, you get an email saying, please comment on Dan, Bridget, and our son's emotional state. And they made their comments. I don't know if you have those comments. I don't know if you have any of the minutes of our meeting. Nancy says, no. Dan, okay. Then Nancy says, wait a minute. I do have minutes from the meeting that Phil had with you and Barney. Took the minutes, so I do have those. This email that I reference isn't something I made up. On March 30th, I say, hi guys. We talked to my coworker, Teresa Stenoyan, RN, today when we returned home. She was asked to give a statement regarding Dan, Bridget, and Ethan's mental state. That's the word I used. Which she did with a statement of nothing to report. All systems normal. She told us because she was surprised where all this was going. Teresa was the one who encouraged me to talk to Frank Weirman to set up the initial meeting on Thursday, March 12th. She worked with me daily in the clinic. We told her about the angry diagnosis. She was obviously not buying the idea. I don't know if anyone else on the team here or on furlough were asked about our mental state. Am I the only one finding this strange? We were not asked or told that this was taking place or that this is part of a CPP procedure. I thought you should know. I'm not sure what to think anymore. Thanks for everything. That was to my pastor on March 30th. We start the timeline on March 8th, and we go through that timeline, and whatever had happened, it happened. So here we are, March 22nd. Phil McMillan is flying to the Gambia. On the 23rd, we meet with Phil McMillan and Barney Robeson in an apartment at the guest house in Banjul, and Barney Robeson, the scribe, takes notes. Okay? At the end of those notes, these minutes that Nancy Hepworth tells me she has, here is Phil McMillan's last statement. Phil, we need a plan of action which is simple and biblical for dealing with the children. A plan involving the dads, i.e. the dads would help with the homework. It is acceptable to make ministry time for the counseling. Then Phil, possibly to bring a care team to the field to assist the field in working through things. That was the minutes printed out. That's the 23rd. On the 25th, Phil McMillan tells us there's no bullying, there's no abuse, your son's not a victim, there's nothing to see here, you're the problem. So we send our resignation letter on January 9th. It's relatively benign. Our resignation goes into effect February 29th. So Phil McMillan responds to our resignation on January 20th, and this is what he writes. He says some things, but he says, my biggest concern is simply that through this process, many relationships have been, and there's a slash, may be damaged, period. In the body of Christ, it is not God's will that we go on in disunity. So my hope is that we will be able to soon enjoy restored relationships. I would enjoy any communication from you. Hopeful, Phil McMillan. So on March 10th, and he says, I was able to buffer this video. Our internet has been a challenge and appreciate the content. I take bullying seriously, and I know our child safety team or department does too. We have a lot to talk about when you want to do that. That is March 10th. So then I reach out to the eyewitness, Barney Robeson. I wanted to confront Barney on the facts, the truth. What's wrong with the truth? So we meet at the Bryan Family Restaurant in Lapeer, Michigan on Saturday, March 19th, eating breakfast. And I tell Barney, I said, you know, Barney, a year ago, we should have done this differently. I'm going to apologize, Barney, for some things that I said, and I did. So I pull out the ABWE core values, and I slide them across to Barney, and we read them. And I say, you know, that we are, in this conversation, we will encourage one another to be accurate and open communication, to live a holy lifestyle, to be act responsible fiscal stewardship, and the avoidance of exaggeration, misrepresentation, deception, or breach of ethics. And I slide them across the table to Barney on March 19th, 2016. And he takes that piece of paper and he folds it up like this. And he takes it and he slides it underneath his day planner. Because Barney Robeson knows for a fact he has engaged in deception and breach of ethics. You know why he knows that? Because he sat right there with Phil McMillan on March 23rd. And we asked him, we said, Phil, who else have you talked to? And what does Phil McMillan say? He says, Dan, you're the first people we're talking to. Just the day before, Barney had sent emails to our teammates telling them in an implied statement that we have emotional problems. Those emails were brought over, printed out by Deb Newsom and Teresa Stenoyan, and read by Phil McMillan and probably Barney Robeson on March 23rd. But they can't tell the truth. They can't tell it on March 23rd, 2015, and Barney can't tell the truth on March 18th, 2016. I'm sitting at church. I want to say it's the first Sunday in April 2016. And I have a lawyer from our church come up to me who was one of our supporters, had given money along the way. I had a friend of mine come up who was part of the missions committee. And they say, hey, we're disturbed about this letter we received. I'm like, what letter? You haven't heard about the letter? No, I haven't heard about the letter. On March 29th, 2016, on ABWE letterhead, Phil McMillan, Regional Director for West Africa, Lomé, Togo, sends a letter to 129 of our supporters. And he charges our account approximately $100 for postage and administrative fees to send out this letter. We were told by the accounting department that this was our resignation letter. They gave us a statement that talks about how we should work with our regional administrator on the timing of this letter. But we don't know anything about it. So here it is, written and sent out to 129 of our supporters. Near the end of their term, some stresses and decisions affecting their family led Dan and Bridget to the understanding that they were probably not compatible with the core values of ABWE. Well, lo and behold, just 10 days before, I have a conversation with Barney Robeson about the core values. You know how many conversations I'd had about the core values before that? 0. ABWE probably talked about them in some training somewhere, but on the field, the core values were never discussed. I discussed them with Barney Robeson. 10 days later, Phil McMillan's using that as his core value. On April 25th, Dr. E. Allen Cockrell, president of ABWE, sends us a letter thanking us for our service with no mention whatsoever of our core value issues. Isn't that interesting? So let me just recap really quickly. The minutes taken on March 23rd are never referenced in the Child Protection Report, the inquiry. Deb Newsom, Teresa Stenoyan, or Bethany Caldwell's comments are never mentioned ever in the report. They're not referenced either. Phil McMillan's April 16th letter, which is read into the minutes, or the testimony on June 26th is never mentioned in the report. Barney Robeson's May 8th letter telling us the exact date, or pretty close, exact date of the Libby's departure as the eyewitness is never referenced in the report. Because you know why? They don't know it exists. The July 17th phone call with Ron Washer is never referenced in the report. The July 22nd letter written by Keith Lippy is never referenced in the report. The report written by Nancy Hepworth on September 4th is never referenced in the report. The fact that we reported retaliation is never referenced in the report. Reported retaliation to Nancy Hepworth on June 26th, to Ron Washer on July 17th, to Nancy on September 2nd. She reported to Dwayne Early. At least 4 times the word retaliation has been used. Bullying has been used. Phil McMillan's name has been used. And yet, when they publish out their report, none of this exists. Let's go back to the definitions again. Throw it back out there. When you look at all of this situation, you have to look at it through the eyes of the people in charge who know what's going on. So let's look at this. Dwayne Early, Vice President of Global Operations. Ron Washer, Area Director of Africa. Phil McMillan, Regional Administrator of West Africa. Keith Lippy, Team Leader. Keith Lippy's wife, Michelle Lippy. Keith Lippy's son, Caleb Lippy. Tim Hepworth, Doctor, International Healthcare Ministries. And Nancy Hepworth, Child Safety Officer. You have to look at it on October 22nd, 2015. They know it's true. And they know it's a lie. They know how to use deception. They're adults. What's sad is just how pathetic and how necessary and how unspiritual, ungodly, nasty these people are. Here's kind of how it went in my mind. I was willing to let this go until March 29th. See, there's something fundamental in my marriage vows that makes my wife more valuable than anybody else. My wife's more valuable than me, and my wife's more valuable than my kids. Phil McMillan attacked my wife's character. So, I do some research. May comes along, 2016, and I read the PII report. The Professional Investigators International, 280 pages talking about ABWE and child abuse from the 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way to 1989, when Wendell Kempton, president of ABWE, protected a pedophile and harmed children before, during, and after 1989. And it made me think. So I sent a letter explaining the basics here to Dr. E. Alan Cockrell. Dr. E. Alan Cockrell made a video in May of 2016, specifically asking all of us to shine a light on the darkness, which I did.
Projecting a measure of justice will also send a message to future ABWE leaders that caring for our missionaries and their families is our most important duty, even if it means the risking of the existence of the organization itself. I ask all within the ABWE family and community that those who support us to join me in this commitment to shine a light on darkness, to hold one another to a high standard, and to not allow protecting of our reputation or our mission to cloud us from protecting our children and all who are within our care.
And Dr. E. Alan Cockrell sent me a letter about 6 weeks later. It is dated November 23rd, 2016. And it says, "Dear Mr. Byram, thank you for your patience as we took some time to review your report and meet with the child safety team that conducted the inquiry." So we're going to meet with the same people who've got us here again. The Child Safety Response Team received input at several levels and conducted interviews with 17 people connected with ABWE in the Gambia. The inquiry was completed and not reported for the following reason. That is called deception by omission. They're a mandatory reporter. There is no following reason. Here's the law. First and last name was used, report it. That's the law. Based upon the preponderance of the evidence, the report was also reviewed by our attorney, who was in agreement with the conclusion. Now, that again is a deception because there's a complete breach of ethics here. The breach of ethics is they've lied to me. It implies that they've asked their lawyer to participate in the lie. And here's the lie. You are not permitted as a lawyer to use deceit on anyone to cover up the truth, the facts, and the law. And the law in Pennsylvania is mandatory reporter. Who's a mandatory reporter? Dr. E. Allen Cockrell is a mandatory reporter. When it came to his attention, he became a mandatory reporter. But it goes on. We would like to clarify a statement referenced on page 3 of your letter. We believe the statement claiming you were dismissed from the field is an error. Our records show that you were asked to take an early furlough in order to pursue counseling. This was clarified in an email sent to you April 16th, 2015 from Phil McMillan. And then they go on and they say, we are sorry that this has been a difficult process for you and your family and would be happy to discuss further. That was November 23rd, 2016. So what does he do? He references the April 16th letter written by Phil McMillan. Dr. E. Allen Cockrell and the Safety Committee have decided that that letter is a valid document to use as an explanation. But you can't just pick and choose. Either it's all valid, or we have to do what we would call in the biblical world textual criticism. What did Phil know? And when did he know it? So, I contacted Dwayne Early. I give him a lot of credit. Dwayne Early came to the Grand Rapids, whether he came to see me or he's just out here anyway, I don't know. But Dwayne Early and I met at Logan's Roadhouse the first week in April 2017. And I spent 4 hours with Dwayne Early. You could have seen the look on his face. Now, it's interesting. I asked him several times, are you sure you want to hear this? When you go backwards in the report, it becomes glaringly obvious right away. Something doesn't add up. Now, Dwayne Early is VP of Global Operations. He's over the child safety team. And I am willing to bet that he was kept mostly in the dark over this entire thing. They slid this document across to the child safety team. There are very many reasons within the document to not believe it was written by Tim and Nancy Hepworth. But here I am with Dwayne, April 2017. And we go over this for 4 hours. And he has a pained look on his face through some of it for sure. And he says, now, Dan, you've given me a lot to think about. Give me a few weeks, and I will get back in touch with you. Great. So that was the beginning of April. May goes by. June goes by. July goes by. And I send him an email. And I say, Dwayne, a man's word is his bond. time we meet in August. I want to say it's the beginning of August, at Smoky Bones on 28th Street in Grand Rapids. Dwayne didn't quite come with the open arms, the open mind that he had in April. He assures me that I don't know how I come across, that maybe my perceptions aren't what their perceptions are. I think his actual words are, we don't perceive it the same way you do. Now, there's a certain amount of perception I would agree. But when you have to lie about actual physical movements, actual physical things taken, money changed hands, times were spent, people traveled, and when you have to lie about those to protect your narrative, there's something wrong with your narrative. You can not like my delivery, but somehow Dwayne Earley seems to think that's completely acceptable to libel and slander a man's wife. I personally don't think that's true. Well, here's what Dwayne Earley tells me in August. That Phil McMillan has been removed from his position of authority. He's no longer the African director. So I'm a snooper, what can I say? So I type in on Google, Phil McMillan, ABWE, whatever, right? And I find some information of some of the churches that support him. And Phil McMillan tells the churches in May of 2017 that they are now transitioning back to America. They've bought a condo in Grand Rapids because Kitty's health sounds familiar. ABWE just got themselves a new president in November of 2017. So I write the new president, hey, this is a chance for him to show his quality. So I send him pretty much everything to this date. And President Paul Davis has Carla Loftman, child safety officer, send us an email. She assures us that she's looked over everything that I sent this time. And they really can't change their conclusions. So they've closed the matter. So then my pastor gets a phone call. Scott Dunford tells my pastor the exact same thing that Dwayne Earley told me. That Phil McMillan has been removed from his position of authority. And in July 2019, okay, so let's just run through the months, okay? 26 months, 26 months later, in July 2019, I send President Paul Davis another letter. But what's funny is, in that letter, I go ahead and let him know that, it seems you might not be telling the truth. Phil McMillan has been removed from his position of authority according to two different sources. Dwayne Earley, VP of Global Operations, and Scott Dunford, VP of Communications or some such thing. And they, one to me, one to my pastor, and he's been removed from his position of authority. But on the ABWE donor website, if you've given money on the donor website to Phil McMillan from May of 2017 until August or September of 2019, you gave money to the West African Regional Administrator. But that wasn't his title anymore. So suddenly, in September, October, whenever they changed it, the adjunct professor of theology. From March 22nd, 2015 to this day, these leaders of a mission called ABWE, the Association of Baptists for World Evangelism, have been telling lies and taking money and telling lies. Paul Davis, president of ABWE, knows the truth. He's protected Dwayne Early because Dwayne is a made man. He's protected Ron Washer and Phil McMillan because they're made men. He's protected Tim and Nancy Hepworth because they're made people. It doesn't matter what they do. It matters who they are. Truth, honesty, integrity, ethics, the core values, none of that is in play. None of it matters. It's the men, the mission, and the money. If you are Paul Davis and you sit as president, I would love to hear your explanation of my explanation. Because my explanation, using your explanation, an explanation, and another explanation, and a different explanation, and a different timeline, and a fake timeline, and no timeline.
Psalm 107 tells us to give thanks to the Lord for his good and his wonderful deeds. It's my prayer for you in this next year that both I and the team here at the headquarters will serve you well. We'll serve you with integrity.
But integrity requires accountability. Everybody wants me to shut up. Everybody wants this to be silenced. Everybody wants ABWE to go on because it hurts their heart to think they can't trust. It should. If you can't trust Paul Davis to do the right thing, if you can't trust the board of ABWE to do the right thing, what would be the right thing to do? It's too late, they surmise. We can't get out of this unscathed. We will be caught up in the Wendell Kempton Ketchum doctrine, where we protected bad actors to protect ourselves. And we can't get away with pretending we didn't know. Dr. E. Allen Cockrell says, shine a light on the darkness. But he didn't expect it to be his people. Here's how it works. It's not complicated. It's very simple. For ABWE, the past has been dealt with Don Ketchum. Wendell Kempton's dead. It's over. We did the 280-page report. We took our lumps. We deserve to be trusted again.